Hello GenderqueerChat, it's Callie and this is Saturday, and this week the topic is things that we have made. And one of the things that I don't make many physical things except cakes, and if I had thought, then I would have filmed the pie that I made yesterday, but it's all gone now. But the main thing I was going to show was so one of the things that Stefan suggested in this was poems, and mine are going to be poems. And since it would fit in, I thought it would fit in quite nicely since Micah showed us his novels. So I'm going to read a couple of my poems and talk about that a bit, since that's my big thing, is poems. So I'll probably just read 2 or 3 depending on how much time they take. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. At the moment, I'm this week and weekend there's a poetry festival in my town, which is really exciting, and I am doing lots of work for the poetry festival, and it's very exhausting running around taking tickets and setting up events and things all day, but I'm finished for the day now. So yeah, it's good, it's fun, and it's very inspiring to be around so much poetry. Okay, so I thought I'm not going to. One of the things I do is I do translations from Latin, which is the language that I read best other than English. So I do translations from that, but this poem I'm going to read is not actually, it features a translation. There's an epigram from a Latin play from the tragedy Octavia, which is thought to have been written by Seneca, but probably wasn't written by Seneca, and so we call it Pseudo-Seneca's Octavia, and it's about the Emperor Nero and his relationship with his mother and his wife Octavia. And his mother was Agrippina, and that is the title of the poem. And I was studying this in a Latin class last year, studying this particular passage. And this poem is both about the story of Agrippina and about the experience of translating this passage from Seneca's Octavia. And it is a little kind of grim. The passage is about Nero sends someone to kill his mother, Agrippina, and when the assassin arrives, she instructs him to kill her because she has given birth to someone as monstrous as Nero, who was a terrible emperor. And there's an epigram which I'll read in Latin, and then an English translation of it as well before the poem. Agrippina. Caedis moriens ministrum, rogat infelix, utero dirum condat ensem. Hic est fodiendus ait, ferro monstrum qui tale tulit. Octavia. That's from Octavia. And the English translation is, she, dying unfortunate, asked the minister of her death to bury the hard sword in her womb. Here it is, to be dug out with your sword, she said, the belly that bore such a monster. Here's the poem itself. Darkened stairways, longs and lengthen, for the antique moonface, freshly oil-bed and nerveless as in conflict, bound by the extent of his walking around money problems to maintain homesteads seized far from the softness of battle. Gaps in walls hung wide, open spaces coalesce. It's the only hope of the waiting wordless, yet as behind the curtain the lunar rat curts a pattern-free light. Here moving her hand over her prone water stomach, not with a technical problem, but the swell hysteric death she says it is, that is, for your cleave must, because unburthened of this monster, that suffers every retter of the blood, to court those hot points of issue. Would a bastard of noble stain keep things right in her damaged way? I'm going to start this again, because that wasn't really good. Agrippina. Agrippina. Caedis moriens illa ministrum rogat infelix, utero dirum condat ensem. Hic est fodiendus ait, ferro monstrum tulit. And the translation is, she, dying unfortunate, asked the minister of her death to bury the hard sword in her womb. Here it is to be dug out with your sword, she said, the belly that bore such a monster. And that's said by Agrippina in the tragedy, and this is the poem itself. Darkened stairways longs and lengthen for the antique moonface, freshly oil-bed and nerveless as in conflict, bound by the extent of his walking around money problems to maintain homesteads seized far from the softness of battle. Gaps in walls hang wide, open spaces coalesce, it's the only hope of the waiting wordless, yet as behind the curtain the lunar rat curts a pattern-free light. Here moving her hand over her prone water stomach, not with a technical problem, but the swell hysteric death she says it is, that is, for your cleave must, because unburthened of this monster, that suffers every retter of the blood, to court those hot points of issue. Would a bastard of noble stain keep things right in her damaged way? His eyes blank the triplicate future of Italy, given common distance to and with a funeral cry. Okay, if the light's different, that's because I went away and came back, so time has passed on, evening has continued to set in, and I will now read a poem which is probably less, it's been dark enough here. Anyway, I will now read a poem which is less miserable, maybe, which is a little more optimistic. But I always like, not always, but I often like using classical and or biblical references. I don't know why these stories appeal to me so much, because I'm not religious, and I didn't study the classics a lot at school, although I did study them in the last couple of years at university. But anyway, enough preamble. This is a poem called Raven and Dove. When Noah, who, to have a dream like that, must have been some kind of poet, sent his raven from the ark to seek a world washed bare of sin, it wheeled over the deeps, for blue whales sported vastly, and it fell, like a stone or feather, in love, and wheeled back to the forecastle, looking starved and wet, though still the sun beat down as Noah stared at its prone and naked body of bones. There is no thing so wrong as dumb requital, and wisdom is to know the starry baths are heavenly in their distance, and to give ourselves in innocence up to the world, like the dove, who Noah from his rest whitely expressed into the atmosphere a human sense of something, overscam the yet green Troad on the Bosphorus, draining itself under the sun, to grasp the branch out of the seat of the Lord's heart. Beauty and form, wrote Noah later, then he hugged himself and laughed aloud, a child, with bitter olive dripping from his lips. Okay, well, I hope you were able to derive some enjoyment or profit from that. I'm very tired after a long day of poetry events, and I've got 2 more days of poetry events to go, but that's what it's all about. So, yep, thanks for listening, and it's been fun seeing what everybody's made, and I will see you next week.